Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time, as we wrap up Wednesday, 2nd July, 2025. Let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China. Chinese companies dominate the electric vehicle market in 2024, accounting for 70% of global sales. China's share of global foundry capacity is projected to reach 30% by 2030, exceeding Taiwan. The U.S. government has lifted export restrictions on chip design software to China, which were initially announced by Synopsys, a U.S.-based company. Honor has launched its new foldable smartphone, the Magic V5, initially in China and then internationally. A Beijing-based fintech services provider is partnering with a Hong Kong firm to develop stablecoin and virtual asset technology using China's digital yuan. Baidu is enhancing its internet search service with AI, allowing longer text inputs and complex query. Alibaba Group Holding is investing 50 billion yuan, $7 billion, in a subsidy program for its instant commerce service. Major Chinese EV manufacturers, including BYD and Geely Auto, are maintaining strong sales through price reductions. Chinese technology companies listed on the mainland are accelerating fundraising activities in Hong Kong. China's services activity has weakened to a 9-month low. United States. The U.S. government has lifted export restrictions on chip design software to China. However, experts warn that proposed Republican IV cuts could allow China to further dominate the electric vehicle market, where U.S. automakers held only 5% of global sales in 2024. Taiwan. Taiwan is poised to be surpassed in global foundry capacity by mainland China, with China projected to reach 30% by 2030. President Lai has chosen to confront China. Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, a Beijing-based fintech services provider is partnering with a local firm to develop stablecoin and virtual asset tech, utilizing China's digital yuan. Chinese technology companies listed on the mainland are speeding up fundraising plans in Hong Kong. Others. Shares of Lopu Gold saw a surge following the conclusion of a lockup period, drawing in investors who missed the jeweler's prior gains post its 2024 launch. United States employers face a potential $82.30 billion due to President Donald Trump's proposed tariff plans. Elara Capital forecasts the U.S. dollar index, DXY, to fluctuate between 95 and 99 in the coming 2 quarters, with an average of 100 projected for C25. Notably, the U.S. has lifted export controls on certain chip design software intended for China, a move confirmed by Siemens, Synopsys, and Cadence Design Systems. Further expanding its trade relationships, the U.S. has forged trade agreements with Vietnam, leading to a decline in Hong Kong stocks as Chinese goods shipped from factories outside mainland China may face new obstacles. Buoyed by the U.S.-Vietnam trade deal, Wall Street saw gains, with the S&P achieving a new record. Turning to Australia, the services sector is demonstrating improved performance alongside reduced costs. According to S&P data, the nation's commitment to net zero emissions is highlighted by a new home battery plan. In cybersecurity news, Qantas Airways reported a cyberattack affecting 6 million customer records. GimLife's IPO represented the largest in Australia this year, marking a successful debut. Australian shares experienced mixed results, with financial stocks facing downward pressure offset by gains in the mining sector. Domino's responded to inquiries from the Australian Securities Exchange, ASX, regarding unusual share price fluctuations. fueled by mining sector gains and increasing expectations of rate cuts. Australian shares reached a record closing high. JP Morgan has released a report analysing mergers and acquisitions, M&A activity, in Australia. A father-son duo is set to gain $270 from an Australian IPO. The ASX opened with minimal change, awaiting the US non-farm payrolls report. Globally, copper prices are holding steady near multi-month highs, driven by supply constraints and anxieties surrounding possible US tariffs. Saudi Arabia's non-oil sector showed accelerated growth in June, boosted by strong demand. According to the Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, the main Saudi index closed higher at 11,129, a 0.07% increase, though market capitalization declined alongside a 26% drop in trading volume. To meet ambitious goals, foreign direct investment, FDI, needs to increase. International visitor spending in Saudi reached $13 billion in the first quarter. Several investment deals and partnerships have been forged. Saudi and Indonesian private companies signed agreements totaling $27. Ruya Partners finalized a SAR $206 million private credit investment in a fiber production plant. Aquapower's shareholders approved a $1.90 billion rights issue. Lucid has partnered with Saudi Arabia's TVTC for workforce training initiatives. Ninja, a Saudi delivery startup, became a unicorn with USD $250 million in funding, joining the GCC unicorn list. New menu labeling regulations have been introduced. Saudi REITs are facing headwinds due to global economic conditions and liquidity problems. India's financial markets are responding to a mix of international and domestic cues, including anticipation of an India-US trade deal that could reduce tariffs and boost specific sectors. Domestic gold prices have seen an uptick amid trade deal uncertainties and increased spot market demand. The Indian rupee has gained some support from expectations surrounding the potential trade agreement and less robust as jobs figures. Gift Nifty indicates a slightly positive start for the Indian benchmark index. The Indian IPO market is showing signs of recovery, with around $2.40 billion in offerings anticipated in July, driven by renewed market confidence. This resurgence creates strategic opportunities, especially given the post-US downturn context. India has also streamlined transactions with a single contract note for both the Bombay Stock Exchange, BSE, and the National Stock Exchange, NZE. The Roxel Trades platform has exceeded Rs 2 lakh crore in MS and invoice financing, signaling significant growth in this area. Taipei Fubon Commercial Bank, a major Taiwanese banking institution, has been authorized to open a branch in India, indicating increased international financial involvement. In contrast, Foxconn is reducing its Chinese staff in India, potentially impacting Apple's expansion plans within the country. Motorola Oswald has given Enox Wind a buy rating, with a target price of Yacht 210, citing the company's order book and the potential for growth in India's renewable energy sector. Market experts like Ankush Bhaya, Raja Venkatraman, TradeBrains Portal, and MarketSmith have also offered stock recommendations. Osho Krishan from Angel One suggests purchasing Latent View Analytics and Ananuka Agritech. Indian e-commerce stocks are exceeding the performance of their Chinese counterparts due to rising profit forecasts. Across the Pacific, the United States' economic data and tariff policies are influencing global markets, including those in India. Bond traders in India are actively tracking US economic data for market direction. Concerns about potential US tariffs have injected a degree of caution into the Indian stock market. Russia is facing rising tensions with Azerbaijan, marked by a diplomatic crisis following a plane crash and subsequent arrests, though specific details are not yet available. Despite the strain, Azerbaijani and Russian investigators are communicating, and Russia is advocating for a restoration of positive relations. Economically, Russia's natural gas exports to Europe have reached record lows. Lung exports also declined by 4.4% year-over-year in the first half of the year. However, the Russian central bank is contemplating a key interest rate reduction of over 1 percentage point in July, even as the unemployment rate in Russia hit a new low in May. Russia is actively pursuing stronger economic ties with Pakistan, aiming to double trade to $1.80 billion and highlighting the importance of business collaboration. In the financial sector, Sberbank is at the forefront of introducing the digital ruble, a move intended to transform Russia's financial system. Share prices in the financial sector on the Moscow Exchange, MOEX, were observed on July 7, 2025, at 13.0 MSK. Internationally, Russia is increasingly dependent on China for support. During the Trump administration, sanctions on Rosaboron export and Russian banks were lifted amid a decision related to Syria, and there was a push for the West to ease sanctions on Moscow. Goods and funds continue to enter Russia despite existing restrictions, partly due to the absence of new U.S. sanctions. Russia is also accused of using Moldova as a testing ground for disinformation campaigns. The United States has solidified a trade agreement with Vietnam, as declared by President Trump. This agreement introduces a 20% tariff on Vietnamese goods exported to the U.S., a country heavily dependent on these exports. Simultaneously, the deal permits duty-free entry for U.S. goods into Vietnam. This is the second such trade agreement, which follows previous tariff threats. Chinese manufacturers operating within Vietnam have received the agreement positively, anticipating reduced U.S. tariffs on their products. Investors have reacted favorably, contributing to the S&P 500 achieving a record high. Since tariffs were imposed on China, there has been an increase in U.S. imports from Vietnam, prompting manufacturers to explore alternative production locations. Asian markets present a mixed picture, reflecting Wall Street's divergent paths amidst waning momentum and a slump in Tesla's stock value. All eyes are on the impending release of U.S. employment figures. On Wall Street, futures are relatively stable in this truncated trading week, characterized by a scarcity of corporate announcements and earnings disclosures. Investors are focusing intently on the upcoming U.S. jobs data and the approaching tariff implementation date. Market sentiment in Asia has been shaped by elements such as Trump's tax legislation, the surges in U.S. equities propelled by Tesla and Nike, and the relaxation of U.S. export controls on chip design software destined for China, which has provided a lift to Asian semiconductor stocks. The ambiguity surrounding Trump's tariff policies and the Federal Reserve's strategies continues to cast a shadow over market confidence. Japan's trade talks with the U.S. are facing difficulties, especially regarding automobile exports and rice, with President Trump highlighting the trade imbalance. The potential imposition of a 35% tariff by the U.S. is worrying Japan. This uncertainty has led to fluctuations in the Nikkei. Concerns over possible U.S. tariff hikes contributed to a drop in Tokyo stocks. Japan's bond market is preparing for its first 30-year bond sale since cuts in issuance. Shareholder activism is increasing in Japan, with shareholders wielding influence during AGMs, leading to management changes. Department store shares are struggling due to decreased tourist spending. An Air Spring Japan plane, traveling from Shanghai to Tokyo, made an emergency landing at Kansai Airport. Ukraine reports that North Korea is allegedly preparing to dispatch 30,000 soldiers to aid Russia in the ongoing conflict. Concurrently, Ukraine executed a deep drone strike within Russian territory. However, the Pentagon has temporarily paused weapons shipments to Ukraine, citing depleted U.S. munitions and the need to safeguard U.S. interests, according to a White House announcement. Turning to the United Kingdom, economic and political instability is rising. Borrowing costs have increased sharply due to concerns about Finance Minister Rachel Reeves' future and the UK's fiscal standing. In business news, Greggs, the well-known bakery chain, experienced a 15% drop in its share price due to a June heatwave that reduced sales. Santander also intends to broaden its UK operations by purchasing TSB, even with the existing underperformance of its current UK branch. Europe's stock markets enjoyed a boost, with renewable energy and luxury goods leading the charge as investors eyed US trade negotiations. The FTSE 100 mirrored these gains, although UK bond yields saw an uptick amid internal strife within the ruling political party. To stimulate biotech advancements, the EU pharma chief is championing the establishment of a European equivalent to the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. Meanwhile, GeoMedia divested its video game website Kotaku to Kellyups, a European publisher, signaling Kellyups' ambition to build a global media enterprise. South Korea faces a complex economic landscape as President Lee promises bold policies following a period of instability. Trade negotiations with the United States are uncertain, and the real estate market struggles with increasing project financing defaults. Despite these challenges, Alibaba Cloud is expanding its presence with a new data center. Meanwhile, the United States has been asked to address South Korean technology regulations that allegedly discriminate against American companies in favor of Chinese firms. Turning to Japan, the country is grappling with an aging population and its impact on the workforce. Prime Minister Kishida is considering measures to encourage older citizens to remain employed longer. Japan is also investing heavily in renewable energy sources, aiming to reduce its reliance on fossil fuels and achieve carbon neutrality. Moreover, Japan's relations with Russia remain strained due to the ongoing dispute over the Kuril Islands, hindering progress on a formal peace treaty. In the latest from Australia, the government is focused on strengthening its cybersecurity infrastructure following a series of high-profile data breaches. New legislation is being considered to increase penalties for companies that fail to protect customer data adequately. Australia is also working to diversify its trade relationships, seeking new partnerships in Southeast Asia and other regions to reduce its dependence on China. The country is also experiencing a surge in renewable energy investment, driven by government incentives and falling technology costs. Shifting to Canada, Prime Minister Trudeau is facing increasing pressure to address rising inflation and housing costs. The opposition party has called for a national inquiry into the housing crisis. Canada is also navigating complex trade negotiations with the European Union, seeking to resolve disputes over agricultural exports. The nation is also bolstering its Arctic defense capabilities in response to increased Russian activity in the region. Jane Ferguson, celebrated for her insightful reporting from conflict zones such as Somalia, Afghanistan, and Syria, has recently unveiled a new independent journalism platform. This venture aims to provide in-depth coverage of underreported global issues, leveraging her extensive experience and network of contacts. Jane experienced a devastating wildfire in its northeastern region, claiming 2 lives before firefighters successfully contained the blaze. In the latest from Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced increasing pressure regarding foreign interference allegations. Opposition parties called for a public inquiry into claims that China attempted to influence Canadian elections. The government maintained that the electoral system's integrity remained intact, despite ongoing concerns. Meanwhile, tensions escalated in Ukraine as fighting intensified in the eastern regions. Russian forces continued their offensive, targeting key infrastructure and civilian areas. International efforts to broker a ceasefire yielded no immediate results, with both sides accusing the other of violating previous agreements. Humanitarian organizations struggled to provide aid to displaced civilians amidst the ongoing conflict. Across the Atlantic, the United States saw renewed debate over gun control legislation following several mass shootings. President Biden urged Congress to pass stricter laws, including universal background checks and a ban on assault weapons. However, Republican opposition remained strong, citing Second Amendment rights. Public demonstrations, both for and against gun control, took place in cities nationwide. France requested a call between President Macron and President Putin, signaling a potential thaw in relations after almost 3 years without direct communication. Adding to economic concerns, French clothing manufacturer St. James halted shipments to the United States, attributing the decision to tariffs enacted under the Trump administration. Middle East. According to former U.S. President Donald Trump, Israel has agreed to terms for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. Families of Iranian political prisoners are reporting worsening conditions after an Israeli strike. Israel and the U.S. are planning a $200 million quantum fund in collaboration with the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Oman is introducing the first income tax in the Persian Gulf, targeting a specific population segment to lessen dependence on oil and gas revenues. Other regional governments are watching closely. Egypt and Saudi Arabia's relationship needs constant work to stay strong. Indonesia is actively seeking Saudi Arabian investment in areas of food security and technological advancements. Africa. The African Development Bank, AFDB, has approved a significant $475 million loan aimed at supporting South Africa's transition towards a greener economy. South African manufacturing sentiment is showing signs of tentative improvement this June. A housing crisis is significantly impacting low-income families in South Africa. Henkel has completed the acquisition of Notback, a company based in South Africa. A plug-and-play model designed to boost inter-African trade is currently under development. Asia. Singapore's Wong is calling for restraint in an ongoing border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia. The Pakistan stock market has surpassed the 130,000 mark, bolstered by low inflation rates and rising oil prices. Hong Kong is expected to reclaim its position as the leader in IPOs. Indonesia is seeing a surge in bond issuance, driven by prevailing low interest rates. Azerbaijan is demanding that consequences be imposed for the deaths of 2 brothers while they were in Russian police custody. Europe. Italy's finance minister has reaffirmed the country's dedication to maintaining fiscal prudence. The Italian banking group Sella is reportedly conducting tests on stablecoin custody solutions. J. Stern & Company has expanded its operations by opening a new office in Frankfurt, Germany, with Andreas Krebs appointed as the head of Germany. Sweden's Arctic Railway is adapting to a future characterized by increased militarization in the region. Americas. In Brazil, the dollar is experiencing a decline, although an economist is warning that this trend does not guarantee overall stability. A video details Brazil's biggest heist and the global crime group behind it. Blue Sky Uranium has acquired key subsurface data for the Corcova uranium project in Mendoza province, Argentina. In the U.S., a small town in Georgia had anticipated new jobs from a solar glass plant, but now faces uncertainty due to potential federal budget cuts that have stalled the project. Canada's stock market saw the S&P TSX composite increase by 0.05% at the close of trading. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.